This tiny island in Japan attracts over 100,000 visitors every year. They come to play with rabbits. But here's what almost none of them know. Between 1929 and 1945, this island didn't exist. Not on paper, not on any map. The Japanese government made it disappear. And when you learn why, you'll never look at these cute rabbits the same way again. This island was not always called Rabbit Island. It was called Unit 731's Secret Factory. And the original inhabitants of this land were not cuddly tourist attractions. They were test subjects for one of the most horrific weapons programs in human history. The question is, how did this land of unmentionable evil become the cutest place on Earth? And what scars does its dark history still leave on the rabbits that live here today? Welcome to Okunoshima, a name most tourists can barely pronounce, but they don't need to, because everyone just calls it Rabbit Island. The moment you step off the ferry, you're mobbed, not by aggressive vendors or tour guides, but by rabbits, hundreds of them. Over 1,000, actually. They hop right up to you, noses twitching, eyes begging for the carrots and vegetables you hopefully remembered to bring. For most visitors, this is paradise, an Instagram dream, a real-life Pokemon Snap. Children squeal with delight, adults become children again. The rabbits are fearless, friendly, almost aggressively adorable. The island itself is beautiful. Just 0.7 square miles of pristine Japanese countryside. No cars honking, no predators hunting, just rabbits, living their best life. But then you notice them, scattered across this paradise. Ruins, crumbling concrete buildings, rusted metal tanks, structures that nature is slowly reclaiming. And if you're curious enough to read the signs, that's when the truth reveals itself. This wasn't always a paradise. In fact, for 16 years, this was hell on earth. Let's go back to 1925. That year, Japan signed the Geneva Protocol, an international treaty that banned the use of chemical weapons in war. Notice I said use, not manufacture. That loophole would cost hundreds of thousands of lives. By 1929, the Japanese Imperial Army was searching for the perfect location to secretly develop chemical weapons. They needed somewhere isolated enough to keep secret, but close enough to recruit workers. They needed security. And they needed a place far from Tokyo in case of disaster. This tiny island in the Seto Inland Sea was perfect. It already had military fortifications from the Russo-Japanese War. 3 fishing families lived here, but not for long. The military took over. And then something unprecedented happened. The Japanese government literally erased Okunoshima from maps. If you looked at an official military map in the 1930s and 40s, there would be nothing but blank water where this island should be. The island that didn't exist was about to produce weapons of mass destruction. What they built here was monstrous, a massive poison gas factory that would eventually employ over 6,000 workers. The main products? Mustard gas and tear gas, the same gases that had horrified the world during World War I. But Japan had bigger plans. Between 1929 and 1945, this one factory produced over 6,000 tons of poison gas. Some sources even claim it was closer to 9,000 tons. Nearly 90% of Japan's entire chemical weapons arsenal came from this invisible island. Where was it all going? China. During the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II, Japanese forces used chemical weapons over 1,200 times against Chinese soldiers and civilians. The death toll, over 200,000 people. 200,000 lives. Extinguished by gas manufactured on an island. But who made this poison? Who worked in this factory of death? Most workers had no idea what they were signing up for. The government recruited locals, telling them only that they'd be working in a special military facility. Everything was classified. Everything was secret. The working conditions were brutal. The safety equipment was inadequate. Workers handled lethal chemicals without proper protection. Many suffered from chronic poisoning, respiratory problems, skin damage, cancers. And here's the cruelest part. After the war ended, the Japanese government refused to compensate these workers. Why? Because admitting they suffered meant admitting the factory existed. And admitting the factory existed meant admitting war crimes. It would take until 1988, over 40 years after the war, before victims received any government aid. But humans weren't the only victims on Okunoshima. There were the rabbits. Around 200 rabbits were kept on the island during the war. They weren't pets. They were test subjects. The military used them to measure the effectiveness of their chemical weapons. How long until the gas killed? How much exposure was lethal? The rabbits provided the answers. These rabbits died slowly, painfully in cages, testing the same weapons that would later kill thousands of humans in China. Now, here's something crucial that many people get wrong. When Japan surrendered in 1945, the Allied occupation forces arrived. They found the factory, they found the rabbits, and they made a decision. Every single test rabbit was euthanized. Every document that could be found was burned. The factory was demolished. The poison gas was dumped into the ocean, buried or burned. The island was sanitized, erased, again. The rabbits you see on Okunoshima today are not descendants of those test subjects. That's a myth. Those original rabbits are gone. So where did today's rabbits come from? For over a decade after the war, Okunoshima remained forgotten, abandoned, a ghost island with a secret that no one wanted to talk about. But by 1958, something changed. Japan was recovering, tourism was growing, and someone had an idea. What if we turned this island into a resort? The island was already part of the Setonaikai National Park system. It had beautiful beaches, stunning views, and more importantly, almost no one remembered what had happened here. In 1971, the Kukumura National Park Resort Hotel opened. Its manager, Hirofumi Nishiyoshi, wanted something to attract visitors, something cute, something memorable. That's it. 8 rabbits, released by local school children as part of a publicity campaign. And because Okunoshima has no natural predators, no foxes, no hawks, no wildcats, and because hunting rabbits is forbidden, those 8 rabbits did what rabbits do best. They multiplied. By 2007, there were about 300 rabbits. By 2015, around 700. Today, over 1,000. The island is overrun, and tourists love it. In the age of social media, Rabbit Island went viral. Cute videos of tourists being mobbed by fluffy bunnies racked up millions of views. Travel bloggers called it a must-visit destination. The transformation was complete, from Poison Gas Island to Rabbit Paradise. From a place erased from maps to one of the most photographed spots in Japan. It's one of the most dramatic rebirths any place has ever undergone. But paradise has a price. And the scars of history don't disappear just because we cover them with cuteness. In 1988, peace activists and local residents did something remarkable. With grassroots fundraising, they built the Okunoshima Poison Gas Museum. It's small, just 2 rooms. But it's honest. The museum displays the truth. Gas masks, chemical weapons production equipment, documents ordering gas attacks in China, photographs of suffering workers, and most importantly, it displays the effects of poison gas on the human body. As the museum's curator once said, "My hope is that people will learn that we Japanese were both victims and aggressors in the war. I hope people will realize both facets and recognize the importance of peace." But here's the problem. According to filmmaker Fritz Schumann, who made a documentary about the island, 97% of foreign visitors come to Okunoshima to see rabbits and never learn about the poison gas history. Most never visit the museum. They feed the rabbits, take their photos, and leave. And the rabbits themselves. They're suffering too. Wildlife experts have raised alarms. The rabbit population is unsustainable. The island's ecosystem is collapsing under the weight of 1,000 rabbits. The vegetation is disappearing. The rabbits' average lifespan on the island? Just 2 years. In a proper domestic setting, they could live 10 years. Why so short? The feeding. Tourists mean well, but they often feed rabbits the wrong food. Cabbage and lettuce, common offerings, can cause bloating and digestive problems. And the feast or famine cycle is devastating. On sunny holidays, the rabbits gorge themselves. On rainy weekdays when tourists don't come, they starve. Many rabbits have respiratory infections, wounds from aggressive interactions, or injuries from cars. The very tourism that gives them life is also harming them. And then there's the contamination. Despite the cleanup in 1945, there was never a major decontamination operation. Residual toxins have poisoned the groundwater. The rabbits can't drink from natural sources. They rely entirely on humans for bottled water. And beyond the island, the legacy continues. In China, over 700,000 chemical weapons abandoned by Japan still poison the soil. As recently as 2027, Japan is still working to destroy them. People are still getting hurt. Children are still finding rusted chemical shells. The gas made on Okunoshima is still killing people, 80 years later. So, what are we supposed to do with a place like Okunoshima? Some people say it's disrespectful, that turning a site of war crimes into a cute tourist trap is a way of forgetting, of sanitizing, of denying responsibility. Others argue that the transformation is healing, that bringing joy to a place of suffering is the ultimate redemption, that the rabbits represent hope, rebirth, and the triumph of life over death. The truth, perhaps, is that both can exist, the rabbits and the museum, the joy and the remembrance, the cuteness and the horror. Just 70 kilometers away is Hiroshima, another place that transformed tragedy into a message of peace. The atomic bomb dome stands as a stark reminder, but Hiroshima is also a thriving, beautiful city full of life and hope. The difference? Hiroshima has never been forgotten. The Peace Memorial is impossible to ignore. Schools bring children there. The government protects it as UNESCO World Heritage. On Okunoshima, the museum is easy to miss. The ruins are crumbling. And as historian Masayuki Yamuchi worries, maybe one day, bad politicians in Japan will wipe out what's left of this place. The rabbits can't speak. They can't tell their story. They just hop and eat and live their short lives. They're innocent, victims of both the island's past and its present. But we can speak. We can remember. We can visit the museum. We can read the signs. We can tell this story. So yes, Rabbit Island is cute. It's adorable. It's Instagram perfect. And you absolutely should visit if you have the chance. Feed the rabbits. Play with them. Enjoy the moment. But also, stop by the museum. Read the plaques near the ruins. Take a moment to understand where you're standing, because Okunoshima is more than just a cute destination. It's a reminder, a lesson, a warning. It reminds us that humans are capable of both great evil and great healing. It teaches us that history doesn't disappear just because we stop talking about it. And it warns us that the weapons we create today might poison the world for generations to come. The cute rabbit island with a dark secret. Two truths, same place. Both are real, both are important, both are worth remembering.